Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Thursday, January 23rd. No, January 12th. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
What happened?
2023. I apologize. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a bit about my co-host. Do you know that today, January the 12th, is National Kiss a Ginger Day? But she's not into that. She likes November 20th. That's National Kick a Ginger Day. She is a she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. Hey there, Sheila. How are you?
I'm doing great, but my husband is a ginger.
Did you kiss him today?
No, he's at work. He's gone. He's gone like 300 days of the year. He's far, far away. It's a wonder we have 3 kids at all, that we spend such infrequent amounts of time together. Am I completely frozen?
No, you're coming in loud and clear
great.
to me, Sheila. But, I love these national days, right? And who comes up with them and why. And you read about them. And evidently, National Kiss a Ginger Day was in response to South Park doing that episode where they promoted National Kick a Ginger Day. And so I go to the National Kick a Ginger Day, and it says, here's the origin. It goes back to 2005. Here's how to observe Kick a Ginger Day. And then it gets to the category, Sheila, sponsor. This event does not currently have a sponsor. Wait
no,
a
I
minute.
bet not.
You mean the Hudson's Bay Company or Tim Hortons or Petro-Canada, they don't want to be attached to an event that is prescribing violence to an identifiable group? You don't say.
As you were talking, as we were sort of getting ready, I was keying up like, okay, well, this is what David's going to say, because there's a big list of things that you can choose from of what today's day is. And I was like, I bet he's going to say Kiss a Ginger Day because he's going to make this about himself. But I'm going to derail the show right off the hop. And
okay.
I know that this was one of the things that was suggested as our list of topics and fun things that you and I would probably have a lot of banter about. Because not only is it Kiss a Ginger Day, my husband's away at work, so that's not happening. But it's also Healthy Weight, Healthy Look Day.
Oh.
And this is going to segue into something. It's also National Kettlebell Day, which is one of my favorite ways to work out. There's actually... beside the dog, there's always a kettlebell under my desk. But I wanted to talk to you about, that's a 25-pound kettlebell. I picked that up pretty easily, didn't I? But I want to talk about this Hooters waitress who wasn't a Hooters waitress, because it just reminded me that it's Healthy Weight, Healthy Look Day. And I calculated her BMI, but we'll get to that in a second. Why don't we throw up the Hooters waitress who isn't a Hooters waitress, who never was a Hooters waitress, but she wore a Hooters outfit on TikTok to claim discrimination, I think is how it goes. But then when they're like, no, actually, she didn't work for us. She never worked for us. Then she's like, oh, no, I'm actually not. Can we throw that up, please? Efron? Okay, great.
Well, that is the uniform.
Yeah, plus size influencer says that she wore the Hooters TikTok video as a joke. Yeah. Except nobody was laughing, especially Hooters, when she claimed discrimination because she was overweight. So now it's just like, oh, I was just joking, which is like what people do now. Of all the places in the world, Hooters remains one of those like less woke places, although they're moving towards body positivity these days. But this was like an attack on, I guess, toxic masculinity, blah, 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 blah. But it would help if you were truthful. Like anything is possible when you lie. And so this lady initially said, oh, yeah, I work for Hooters. I've been discriminated against. But as it turns out, no. I don't even know where she got that uniform. Is it the actual uniform? Do they make them in that size? I don't know. But what do you think her BMI is, by the way?
Sheila, I got to tell you, I'm torn on this because I actually find her quite attractive.
Sure, she's pretty. Sure, she's pretty. I don't dispute that. I think she's pretty.
And I'm a fan of the plumper. Let me tell you, when I look at the supermodel physique, that looks like the physique of a 15-year-old boy, and I can't believe her weight. The weight it was printed in the paper, 320 pounds. I don't see that there, But the funny thing is, and I was telling this to super producer Olivia before we began the show, I was once talking to a Hooters waitress, and contrary to popular belief, it's not about the cup size in terms of what Hooters is looking for in a waitress. The predominant qualification is that you have a flat tummy, So, it doesn't matter what size you are in the chest. They really want to see a flat tummy. Now, of course, that would automatically disqualify her based on Hooters' own hiring strategies. But I just wonder, is Hooters as relevant as it used to be? I understand franchises are closing down.
Sure.
I think the woke kids on campus, they would probably look upon this as the objectification of a woman, but when in fact the waitresses there make incredible tips. So who's exploiting whom, I would argue. So I've heard of franchises closing down. I've heard this is an issue with strip clubs too. They're becoming less and less relevant. Never a fan of those places myself, personally speaking. But I don't know, Sheila, do you think maybe Hooters has a case now for trademark infringement in order to protect their declining brand?
The problem with Hooters is not that there are scantily clad women there. That's, that's a thing. That's how you lure men in. Their food sucked. Like, their wings sucked. They were terrible.
I disagree. Lady Menzoid loves Hooters wings. They do the Miami style. Yeah. I think their food is quite good.
I don't know. I was just not a fan. But I did calculate this lady's BMI in case you're wondering, and it puts her in the beyond overweight. We're into the obese category. Her BMI is 47.3. And I guess my point is that that's just dangerously unhealthy. And so while she's a plus size influencer, she's a pretty girl. I just don't want to see her in an early grave.
Oh, I agree with you. And I think this current trend of lauding very overweight, and as you said, Sheila, obese people, I think this is a dangerous thing. People say, don't fat shame anyone. Well, I'll tell you this much. Get a load of this, Sheila. Way back in 1988, that's how I met the lovable Lady Menzoid. Her mother was fat shaming her. She was saying, and this was the word she used, "You're looking a little blimpy these days." And that made her join the Belly Matrix Fitness Club. And that's how I bumped into her, in a hot tub, no less. And the rest is history. So what I'm saying is that if she hadn't been fat shamed to lose a couple of pounds, to get physically fit, I never would have met this wondrous woman. So how do you like that? Sometimes fat shaming is a good thing, I think, especially when you talk about the medical problems that will, not might, will happen down the road, especially with the heart, diabetes, the list goes on. Ask any doctor. So I'm wondering if we're doing a disfavor to those people who are extremely overweight, saying, no, it's okay, this is how you're expressing your identity. And I mean, in case anyone thinks, like, how dare David Menzies lectures on weight? Look, I'm overweight. I want to lose another 30 pounds. The only reason I'm not, like I used to say, Sheila, I'm fat. The only reason I'm not circus fat is because of my cycling regimen, okay? I get it. But, and sometimes I don't want to get on that bicycle. I hate getting on it. But, after the ride, after you put it in, I know you get on the treadmill, and I know you are super fit, Sheila. Isn't it a good feeling, when you've, had a good workout and you've, and sometimes, personally speaking, it's guilt making me go on it. If I skip a workout, I feel terrible. I feel like I've done something really bad.
Yeah. And to be clear, my fitness goals are not to look a certain way. In fact, I just want to be healthy inside my own body. I want to be able to wrestle with my grandkids as a grandma one day. And I want to be hard for a bear to eat, hard for a bear to catch. When he does catch me, hard for him to kill. I'm going to put up a hell of a fight. And I want to be hard for him to pull apart. Like, I want to have strong joints and connective tissues. I want him to work for it. But yeah, like, I don't think it is kind. Like, this is where we're cloaking cruelty in the robes of compassion. I don't think it's kind to damn people to a sedentary lifestyle where they're going to be chronically ill forever. I think that can't be great for everybody. And like you, I have the same arguments with myself. I do the same thing that everybody does. Minute 12, I know when it's coming on the treadmill. That's when I start talking myself out of it. I'm like, you know what, Sheila, you worked out yesterday, you're fine. Your clothes look okay on you, it's fine. You worked out 10 days this month, you're fine. You don't have to do this. And I know if I can get through to minute 15, I've psychologically changed myself and I'm past that. But I have the exact same arguments with myself that everybody else has when they're working out. It's just a mindset thing, and to realize that it's very short-lived. If you can just power through it, you'll be there. But it's the powering through that's difficult.
Oh, you're 100% right, Sheila. And I mean, I once had a discussion with a doctor, and he said millennia ago, there was no such thing as a fat caveman or cave woman, because back then we were always running to catch our food or running away from a predator so that we didn't become food. And it's kind of like, the movie Zombieland. I don't know if you ever saw that. Do you remember the first rule of Zombieland?
Cardio.
Cardio, that's right.
Yeah,
so you, Sheila Gunreed, you would be a fantastic survivor. You've got the cardio, you've got the weapons. If there's a zombie apocalypse, let me tell you this, folks, make sure you're on Sheila Gunreed's good side. She's one of the survivors.
Now, we've wasted 13 minutes of the show, and I'm sure people didn't come here to talk to us about fitness advice, neither one of us being a personal trainer. But I want to let everybody in on a little secret, and I forced you all to participate in a social experiment last week. Even you, David Menzies, I didn't want to tell you because you would just naturally say nice things. So I didn't even want to let you in on it. But it was because of that lady from Czech News. Remember her? The lady with the dress that was almost upsetting, that because it showed her arms. So she got that email. So she went on Twitter and complained about the email. What was her name again? Tess Van Straten. She is the weather lady at Czech News. And on New Year's Eve, she wore a dress to the 5 o'clock weather forecast, and it was sleeveless. And so she got this like exceedingly mild email about, like, it's almost upsetting. It would look more professional if you didn't wear a sleeveless shirt or whatever in the winter, is what she said. Not that you couldn't wear a sleeveless shirt, just don't wear it in the winter. So when I was reading that, I was like, you know what? Sometimes I like to test myself. Like, I cut things out of my diet just so that I know that certain foods and habits are not the boss of me. And so I thought, because I think I'm resilient to that kind of stuff, but would I be if I invited it? So I did. So that was the day that I had like a little bit stronger makeup on, and I said, I'm filling in for Ezra. So yeah, you know what? When I do fill in for Ezra, I try not to wear a t-shirt. I always try to wear a blazer because it's his show, not mine. But I did my makeup a little stronger, more like a grown-up lady. So somebody actually my age. I did that because if you meet me out in the normal world, I sort of look like this. I don't wear a ton of makeup. It seems like a big hassle. But I thought, okay, well, then I'm going to look for the comments to see what people had to say. And I wanted to know if they would bother me. And as it turns out, they didn't. Like, I got a couple people saying, and some of that was the opposite. Like, some of it said, David should wear more colors, and Sheila should look more professional, wear more makeup, and straighten her hair. I'm never straightening my hair, in case you're wondering. I'm never doing that again. I'm just not doing it. But I got some comments that were like, oh, looks good, Sheila, now like do something with your hair. I'm not. No, bring back the old Sheila. What is going on with her face? That looks awful. We like Sheila, how she is, blah, 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 blah. And it was more of a social experiment on myself, because I wanted to know, would I feel like crying on the internet? Never once. Never once. I
No.
was like, you know what happens tomorrow? I wear something different. I wash my face and life goes on because I'm a fully functioning adult woman who should be resilient to criticism because I'm confident in who I am. Obviously, this lady is not.
Yeah, and it's funny too because going back a decade ago when Ezra and I were at Sun News Network, Sheila, there were many attractive female news presenters that did wear sleeveless tops, and they got crucified.
Right.
And it was very funny too because the left is all about, as we alluded to earlier, not body shaming anyone, but did they ever go to task about the so-called unprofessionalism of female anchors not wearing tops with sleeves? And yet here we are, and I should point out, I don't remember any of them crying on air. I don't remember, and this would be the infancy of Twitter, of course, I don't remember them playing the Rachel Gilmore card. Oh my God, look at all this hate. Why do they hate me? They were stronger women, and it didn't influence the way they dressed. And even if they were wearing tops with sleeves, Sheila, let's figure it, Sun News Network, which was disparagingly called Fox News North. And to me, that's a compliment. That's a badge of honor. I love Fox News. Our enemies, our haters would have thought of something else to criticize the network on simply because it leaned right of center.
Yeah, when you mentioned that last week, I took a little walk down memory lane because remember they called them Skank TV. And then there was one National Post columnist who called them cocktail waitresses in low-cut sleeveless attire. Interestingly enough, that National Post columnist was Tasha Keridan, who went on to run Jean Charest's campaign.
Oh, yes.
I bet she'd probably call herself a feminist while she was looking down her smug nose at other women for showing their arms on TV. And look, I'm not somebody who shows like my shoulders on TV. I just don't like it. I feel like I'm built like a boy, so who needs to look at it? Yeah, she was the loudest voice in all of that was Jean Charest's campaign manager.
Yeah, Jean Charest, who infamously wrote in The Sun in his Hail Mary pass for the Conservative Party of Canada leadership crown, Sheila, that freedom is overrated. Jean Charest, freedom is overrated. Aaron O'Toole, with all the crap in the world right now, writing on New Year's Day how offended he is by F. Trudeau flags, and he hopes that goes away. And by the way, allegedly, one of the motivating things for Tasha Keridan writing that column about, what did you call it, Skank TV?
Yeah.
What I was told, and I guess and I stand to be corrected, but evidently Tasha Keridan applied for a job at Sun News Network. Oh, yeah. Didn't get boy, let's check that off to hell hath no fury.
That's a bitter little pill for her to swallow. We should get to the news of the day because people tune in for the news and not our extreme social commentary on nonsensical things and the culture wars. So this is the Rebel News daily live stream. It's normally hosted by David. Sometimes I co-host and allows us to talk about the news of the day if we ever get around to it in an unscripted way. If you'd like to support the work that we do, you can find us on multiple platforms: Rumble, Odyssey, Getter, YouTube.
Did you say YouTube?
And Twitter. And you can only financially support us through a paid chat on Rumble and Odyssey. Thanks for bailing me out there, Olivia, when I forgot what I was actually doing, when I forgot my job. So if you want to financially support us, you can do it on Rumble and Odyssey, and we'll do our best to read those on air towards the end of the show. David, what is the first news thing that we need to talk about 1/3 into the show today?
Well, you know what? I think this is in your wheelhouse, Sheila. Evidently, the Girl Guides have officially announced a new name for brownies, saying the old moniker caused harm to racialized girls. Sheila, maybe I'm ignorant to how people use racial slurs these days, but in all my life, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I have never heard someone with darker skin being called in a derogatory fashion a brownie. I've always assumed it was the baked good and a classification for Girl Scouts. Is brownie a thing? Is that what people use as a slur against brown-skinned people?
I don't think so. I'm a middle-aged white lady, so I can't be sure, but I'm, like, if we're going to hurl food-based race insults at people, I think cracker is probably the one that they would send my way. Yeah. But this wasn't even about the baked good. This was about a little wood sprite that would, called a brownie, that would come along and help during the night and do like good deeds for the family. And it was sort of to inspire young little girls that they could help their family in their own way, and that you could do things around the house without being asked, because it was your social responsibility, to use the language of the left. And it was about teaching girls to be active participants and contributors to society in their own little 7-year-old way. And it was based on, like a story of these little wood sprites, fairies, called brownies. And it was cute. And it meant something. But instead of communicating this to the girls, because if you're in an organization, you might want to teach the kids the history of the organization. But that was too much like work for Girl Guides Canada. And it was a lot easier to be woke. So what they did was they said, let's cancel the whole name altogether. Do the brownie equivalent, the Girl Guides Canada equivalent of tearing down the statue and rewriting history. And so that's what they did. And now they're calling them the Embers, which I don't know what that does. Like, that doesn't have a historical relevance. I guess it's sort of laterally affiliated with camping, which sometimes they do. Sometimes, not as much as they used to. But they erase the history of the whole organization in the name of being woke. And I don't know of any little kids who are calling other little kids brownies. I just don't. I would like to know how often that happened, and why the leaders, if it did happen, didn't intervene, and why nobody knew why they were called brownies. They were just like, yeah, I guess that's racist. I guess everything you say is racist, so let's fix that. Why didn't they bother to explain the history of this?
Oh, isn't it astonishing? And I'm learning from you, telling me this history of brownies. And Sheila, let's hope to God there are no racialized little girls being called embers in a derogatory way too. Because I understand embers was the final two names, replacement names, was embers and comets. And I got to tell you, I kind of like comets a little more than embers. But since we're on the scouting movement, and I'm going to have to approach this subject very gingerly on this National Kiss a Ginger Day, what do we do with the category beavers for the Boy Scout movement for 5 to 7-year-old boys, and of course girls now? They don't turn down anyone based on sex anymore. So is that not kind of, offside for a certain reason, Sheila?
Move along. And don't give, I said move along, but also don't give these people any ideas. Like, don't give them ideas, because they will.
Wow, what a show so far. Hooters, beavers, I mean, it is still Rebel News, folks.
We're going to get the new rebrand of the show canceled like a week and a half in.
I think at this point we should take a time out for our first ad break, Sheila, before we get yelled at by our super producers, so we can recover here. And here it goes, folks. We will be right back right after this.
Are you liking the banter on our live stream that you're watching right now? If so, you should know that you can get exclusive Rebel News content by going to rebelnewsplus.com. You'll get special shows from my colleagues Sheila Gunn-Reid, Ezra Levant, as well as the Menzoid Menzies, and you'll also get to view our exclusive documentaries, including the one that tells you the truth of what was actually discovered, at least what is known to be discovered so far at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Take a look at the trailer.
Well, the remains of 215 children have been found in a mass grave in Canada.
Many of you know that just over a year ago, the discovery of the remains of 215 children was found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School at the Kamloops First Nation. But what if I were to show you that what I just said wasn't true, and that in fact, a year later, not a single body has been found?
This mass grave is a painful reminder of the genocide.
Canada's leaders aren't condemning the burning of churches. No, they're endorsing the burning of churches.
A juvenile rib bone that surfaced in the same area.
You'd be surprised the number of people who say, you know, I'm a doctor, I'm a paramedic, and this is definitely a human bone, and it's definitely not.
Looks like the chief.
It is.
Could be you.
You know what, Sheila? That's why.
No, just hang on. Did we have to go 10 seconds longer on that ad break because you were piling food into your pie hole? Is that what just happened there?
Yes.
Wow.
That's why I love super producer Olivia. She saw that I was still chowing down on my sandwich, and she extended the ad break. But don't worry, Sheila.
Wow.
I'll get my fat ricotta cheese candy ass on that bicycle seat at the gym later tonight over at Fitness Connection.
It's like the first half of this show didn't even happen to you. Honest to goodness.
Anyway, so many topics to get to. Do you have any favorite right now, or shall we show maybe a video of our beloved?
No,
pardon
let's
me?
continue on. Let's continue on with the David and Sheila specific nonsense here. WWE potential to be sold to Saudi Arabia.
And you know what? I think that
what a great picture of Vince, by the way.
Oh, you know, it's almost like a wrestling script, but it's actually happened. Vince McMahon came out of retirement. It was some complicated share issue. He had all these Class B shares for WWE, Sheila. And as I understand it, for lack of a better term, he engaged in a hostile takeover of his own company. And
and forced out his daughter.
Now, I know all the skeptics there, and I don't blame them. They're saying, oh, come on, this is part of a script. But as far as I can tell, no, this is the real deal. This is all about Vince McMahon regaining control and now potentially putting it up for sale. It was falsely reported it had already been sold. By the way, Sheila, I've heard valuations of WWE being anywhere from 8 to 11 billion US dollars. But if anybody has cash in hand to buy this company, it is the Saudis. Look what they've done on the professional golf circuit, the Live Golf Tour, where they've poached top PGA stars, and I know there's all sorts of litigation going on between the Saudis and the PGA, but they could do this. I'm not sure who else out there has that much money readily available. And the other incredible thing I find about this, Sheila, is what does this mean for the TV rights? Because when you think of it, in the television universe, one of the oldest things on TV over the decades is professional wrestling, whether you love it or hate it. And there is a possibility that if the Saudis get control, they might be shut out of TV networks. So that means, I don't know, it's part of the Amazon Prime package that they stream this. But just imagine that, Sheila, a world in which wrestling is not on TV anymore. That is a potential fallout of this. I know you love wrestling or loved it. What do you make of all these shenanigans?
Well, I think it means good things for the smaller and more up-and-coming promotions. I think they might get some talent out of this. And I'm worried what this means for the culture of WWE, that sort of racy, edgy thing that we love WWE for, the the testosterone charged soap opera of professional wrestling. For example, this Vulture article, so take that for what you will, but some industry reporters also believe a deal has been agreed to in principle, with some fans speculating that the recent firing of wrestler Mandy Rose, owing to racy photos she posted on Fan Time, may have been an indication of things to come. However, others report the WWE is still exploring its options, but they sounds like they've hired JP Morgan to advise on a potential sale. And the company already has a pre-existing deal with the Saudis for 2 Saudi-based shows each year for 10 years through to 2027. So that's sort of coming up to the halfway point on that, or a little bit. We're already past the halfway point. So my concern is this going to make the WWE more bland and less fun? If so, are they going to see a bleed of wrestlers to smaller promotions where they can still sort of be fun and racy and edgy? I don't know.
You know what? That is a fantastic observation, Sheila, because I remember it was like, it might have been 2018. I did a goof commentary here at Rebel where I cut a wrestling promo about
that was good.
the WWE bending the knee to the Saudis when they had an event there. And basically the crux of the matter was that the divas would have to cover up. They couldn't be presented in Saudi Arabia like they are in North America or anywhere else around the world. And I thought that was really awful. I mean, wrestling is, and certainly for several decades, it's the ultimate, sports entertainment show where the presentation you're getting is sex and violence, right? That is professional wrestling. And but you can tell that, money talks and what walks. So if you're going over to Saudi Arabia and they're saying, yeah, you're welcome here, here's the check. Oh, just one thing. We want you to burqa-ize your female talent. That's what happened. There I am. I'll never forget Justin Terry calling me a jobber because I just had this bland wrestling job on, right?
You do. You're a jobber.
How dare you? So there you go. And it looks women's division will not compete. So it wasn't even a matter of go to the back of the bus. It was get the hell off the bus if you were a female wrestler. So that was 5 years ago. I know there's been some reforms in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yeah. They can drive without their dad's permission now. Congratulations. Let's see if they can vote.
But we're putting the cart before the horse. It's not a done deal that the Saudis are going to buy this. What do you make of that valuation, Sheila, into the billions of dollars? I mean, once upon a time. I think it's accurate. Pardon me?
I think it's accurate just based on even merchandise deals, right? It's incredible.
You're so right. And I mean, the history of the WWE or the WWF going back to the early 80s when Vince McMahon Jr. got control of it. His father had passed away. And basically, wrestling once upon a time, based on gentlemen's agreements, everybody had a territory. So you had the Carolinas, or you had Southern Ontario, or you had Alberta. And what Vince did is he started poaching on all the other territories, amalgamating them, basically using the shotgun method. You can either be part of this or I'm going to, demolish you. I'm going to, buy you out. And he built that empire. A huge amount of resentment by the old-time promoters against Vince McMahon for doing this. But look what he did. He did that combination of wrestling and rock and roll. He got Cyndi Lauper involved. He got MTV exposure. And
Donald
suddenly...
Trump.
Pardon me?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, absolutely. And he made it truly a global brand. I mean... Once upon a time, Sheila, they say that horse racing is a sport of kings. If there's a sport of life's unfortunate masses, it's professional wrestling, but not anymore. Professional wrestling is a big deal. The one unfortunate thing I have, and I want to speak to what you alluded to, is the fact that when it comes to professional monopoly, Vince has professional wrestling, Vince has a near monopoly. And I don't like any kind of monopolies, whether it's a liquor monopoly in a province or a wrestling monopoly. I think competition is good. And maybe this will spark, some other investors to come up to and get a rival promotion, much like Ted Turner had with WCW back in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I mean, you might see, like I said, you might see the smaller promotions grow. Even just as they don't allow certain women's competitions now in the WWE because they can't wrestle in Saudi Arabia. There's ECW that's sort of up and coming, but there are other things that I worry about with this sale. And it's already been manifesting through this deal that they have with Saudi Arabia for these shows. And it is the very Maoist style propaganda that they roll in front of the shows. So one of them says, welcome to the beautiful and progressive city of Jeddah.
Progressive by whose benchmark?
Yeah. And so that feels like Maoist propaganda, right? And this is part of a greater problem with Saudi Arabia, what they do with professional sports. You talked about golf, but they also do the same thing with Formula One and horse racing. And it's part of the Saudi prince, the Saudi royal family's vision for sort of this rebrand of them as, for lack of a better term, a mecca of elite sports entertainment in the world. But don't look over there at the human rights abuses. Those dead journalists, don't look at those guys. That pile of bodies of gay people stacking up over there, don't look at those.
Yeah.
Can't you see the pretty horses?
You know what? You're absolutely right, Sheila. And I mean, wouldn't it be kind of perversely amusing if you did come to an agreement, okay, the female wrestlers can compete, but they must wear burqas. You know what? I would tune into that. I mean, these gorgeous female wrestlers in the WWE, all dressed up in this fabric coffin, fighting each other in a ring. It would be kind of like, in one regard, it's like the Saudis saying, oh, we're getting our way with morality. But I think, in the other hand, it'd be like we're taking the piss out of the Saudis for how they treat women as second-class citizens.
I don't know. I'm not interested in seeing two people fight in their own prospective sleeping bags. Like I don't know. Doesn't appeal to me. Let's bump along to the next story though. David, I'll let you choose.
All right. Well, let's, we were talking about brownies being racist earlier on. Well, Justin Trudeau loves blackface and brownface. So that's a natural for this. And we have some video of Justin Trudeau delivering a keynote address. And he's talking about, tell me I'm reading this wrongly, Sheila. We're seeing democracy backslide globally and a rise in authoritarian leaders. He wasn't speaking in the third person.
I agree with him. I agree with him.
Let's roll that tape.
We're seeing the devastation of climate change and increasing costs of natural disasters. We're seeing democracy backslide globally and a rise in authoritarian leaders. We're seeing fears exploited and young people, like those who attend this university, wondering what kind of world they're going to inherit. These are historic challenges before us. And the choices we make today will ripple across generations.
Yeah, what kind of world are we going to inherit? What kind of Canada are we going to inherit? You know, just the other day at the dinner table, Lady Menzoid mentioned, by the time we get to retirement age, is there going to be a Canada pension plan with the Justin Trudeau Liberals running around the world in a mad dash, giving away hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to any virtue signaling cause they see? And Sheila, please tell me, This truly is proof that Justin Trudeau might indeed be a sociopath. He's talking about authoritarian leaders. This is the guy that used the Emergencies Act to shut down the Freedom Convoy. This is the guy that had banks freeze the accounts of law-abiding Canadians. This is the guy that had GoFundMe freeze the money raised for the Freedom Convoy. And he's talking about authoritarian leaders on the rise? Sheila, give me a break.
Yeah, he's the same guy who's planning to censor the internet.
Yeah, I forgot that one.
Circumvent the Constitution by using social media platforms to determine who is an acceptable journalist or not. That's a neat little trick he's done there, because he actually can't do that. And the courts have ruled several times in our favor that he can't say who is and isn't a journalist, because it's not a guild or a certification. It's a task that you do. So what he's doing is he's offloading that to the social media platforms to say, okay, you have to downrank these people while upranking this unwatchable mainstream media garbage from the CBC. So if somebody pulled that in Cuba, not Cuba, he's a fan of Cuba. Let's say that Putin did that. Let's say Putin tried to control the internet and said, journalists who are friendly to the regime will be the ones who you can find on the internet, and the ones who aren't, you will never be able to find them. The ones that are critical of Putin, let's hide them. If Putin did that, not only would Justin Trudeau give just cloys and overly emotional speeches about the tyranny of it all, but every mainstream media journalist in this country would be outraged. But they're silent right now because that's what Justin Trudeau is doing. And I thought it was interesting. I wrote it down saying it when he's talking about people are having their fears exploited. Yeah, they are. Yeah, by you, Justin Trudeau. You're the one who keeps telling everybody they're going to die if they don't get the coronavirus vaccine that doesn't work, and they can't travel, and we have to stay away from each other, and that there are Russians hiding under every protest movement against Justin Trudeau, and that there are people organizing on the internet to come and murder you if you are a sexual minority. He's the guy exploiting fears so that he can do the things he wants to do to Canadians.
100%, Sheila. And, also on the angle of authoritarianism, and talk about being tone deaf, later this month, the WEF is going to be meeting. And Chrystia Freeland will be there, of course. I think she's one of the directors, if memory serves. But the point is, when you look at this unelected, non-accountable body, and I get it, they don't have direct say in how countries around the world can set policy, but they have these backroom meetings closed to the public and the media, and they're very influential in terms of influencing governments to carry out policies. And Chrystia Freeland is going to be over in, is it Davos, I believe, Sheila? Meeting with these groups. I wonder how many Canadians are okay with that, or maybe because of the lack of critical reporting by the mainstream media, which, of course, the Justin Trudeau Liberals fund to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars a year, with the CBC over $1 billion a year, 'twas ever thus. And that's another thing, isn't it, Sheila? Who needs censorship when you can control the narrative with payola?
Yeah, and let's not pretend that Chrystia Freeland is some sort of just interested observer in what's happening at the World Economic Forum. Not only is she in these meetings as the Deputy Prime Minister and the Finance Minister who seized everybody's bank accounts, but she's also on the Board of Trustees at the World Economic Forum. So that puts her in direct conflict with Canadian interests if the World Economic Forum wants them to do something that would harm the Canadian economy. So where do her loyalties fall down? Are they to the Canadian people or to her overlords at the World Economic Forum?
Indeed. I was a little distracted there, Sheila. If we can get that photo of her back on the screen, guys. Did she just sit on a cactus or something? I mean, look at the look on her face.
God, she looks like something from a fun house. Like there's...
Guys, has that been doctored or something?
Is that True North? That True North article? Good for them. Yeah, good job, actually. Good for you guys, because it's nothing to see the most unflattering pictures taken of a conservative politician who are normally very photogenic, and then they use those, and they normally make their skin look a little more gray and their pallor a little bit off. So you know what? Good for you guys at True North. Good.
Yeah,
give them a dose of their own medicine.
Oh yeah, and speaking of jokes, I was getting a real Joker vibe there, Lady Joker. Oh, by the way, that's not really a new thing. I don't know if you heard about this, Sheila. This month, a new Batman storyline for the Joker is debuting, in which, and thanks to super producer Ephraim for passing this on to me, it looks like the Joker is now a trans individual
who's
and pregnant and gives birth to a baby Joker. And there's a really disturbing panel that I saw on the internet, because I just can't make myself buy that comic. I can't support this, right? And it's a doctor, doing the gynecologist kind of examination. And yeah, there it is. And basically pondering, how are we going to deliver the baby? Well, that solved a few panels later. The Joker just vomits it up, a little baby Joker. I mean, holy Halloween, Sheila, what happened to the comic book, right? I get it that the comic book industry is chasing an aging audience. It's less relevant to young people as it used to be in yesterdecade. But now I have to, I go to comics for escapism, and now I got to get served up with radical transgenderism. I mean, if I wanted that, I would just go to the Halton District School Board and see Busty Lemieux teaching shop class. But what do you make of this, Sheila?
Was that a baby that he had, or a homunculus?
Like what was that? Sorry?
Was it a baby that he had, or a homunculus? Like a little goblin demon depiction of himself. I don't know.
Yes, that's exactly what he had. And when they see each other for the first time, they share the same thought bubble of, he's adorable.
Okay, so that's like a thing from Satanism, just so you know. And I'm doing my best not to see Satan in everything, but it is getting harder and harder all the time. This stuff is just so far gone for me, because I am still mad about the ladies Ghostbuster reboot. So this is like way over here. And I'm like, no, let's go back to the time of Ray's occult books. Like, that's how we need to stay true to our Ghostbusters roots. And then they had those ladies with the I'm angry at my dad haircuts in the Ghostbusters place. And I was very upset. And so this stuff is just chilling to me. It's so far gone for me.
And here's the thing. The bottom line, Sheila, is the bottom line. Will this comic book sell? I know the female...
You know what, though? It might. It might, because somebody like me might buy it, not because I want to give them the money, but I want to be able to show my kids when there's for lack of a better term, a great reset of humanity. Maybe there's a fire, maybe there's a biblical flood, maybe it's just people have said that there's just enough is enough. But I would like to have a piece of the depravity of this time infecting even the most innocuous things like comic books, to show my grandkids what it was like when Grammy was, in her prime, how terrible it was. Because I think we cannot go on for much longer like this before there is a collective reset of our moral and social institutions.
I hope so. But if I remember the female Ghostbusters movie that came out, I'm going by memory, 2016. I remember it being a box office dud. It did not make money, or did not make a lot of money. And, one of the most outrageous reimaginings that was being discussed in Hollywood, and it finally went nowhere. And in a way, I kind of wish they made it, because it would be just so bad. But it was a Three Stooges movie where the Three Stooges are all females. Now, the Stooges, I'm sorry to say, they skew heavily male. The idea, I don't see women using physical violence against themselves, right? I can tell you, my dearly departed grandmother, whenever there was a Three Stooges episode on and they were handymen and they were tearing apart a pristine mansion to fix a doorbell. She actually reacted viscerally, Sheila. It was painful to see a beautiful mansion being torn down, because that's what a nice lady wants. She doesn't want 3 maniacs coming in with, saws and hammers ripping the walls apart. So, Sheila, how do you think that would have made out a all-female Three Stooges cast?
Terrible. And I just watched, by the way, somebody tearing down the beautiful mansion of Ghostbusters with those 3 unwatchable women. And they even get it wrong. I'm sorry to go on and on, but Ghostbusters is my favorite movie. And it is not a story of 3 scientists saving New York City. It is about 3 born-again entrepreneurs who left academia because they were career academics for entrepreneurism, and they saved the city after the city government and the EPA, which has always been bad, screwed it up for everybody. And they had to save the world. Entrepreneurs saved the world after they wisely left academia. And even in the reboot, they get the whole ethos of the movie wrong. I should just shut up. I could go on forever. I could write a master's thesis on Ghostbusters, but I'll shut up.
I had no idea you were such a fan, Sheila. But by the way, I see time is flying. 7 minutes till 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Do we have any chats that we need to get to?
Let's see if we can get to what's on the YouTube description. So before we move on, let's get to Danielle Smith, my premier, saying and doing all the right things so far. As I pointed out to Drea, a little bit better than Jason Kenney in that he said a lot of good things, did a lot of bad things. She's actually doing what she says she's going to do. So she has called out Justin Trudeau for his green reset. They're committing to phasing out oil and gas here in Alberta, and she says, nah, not on my watch. Interestingly enough, actually, I'll talk about it after. Let's show the clip, and then I'll talk about the opposition here in Alberta.
Like, how big a threat do you perceive the Just Transition Plan and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government and the Green Jesus of Montreal and all the rest of them? How big a threat do you actually see that in reality?
I think it's a big threat. And the reason for that is the language that they're using. Just transition is the language that they used when they phased out the coal industry. It is a social justice term. If they wanted to talk about sustainable jobs, that's completely different. And we'd be quite happy to talk to them about sustainable jobs in carbon tech, sustainable jobs in hydrogen, sustainable jobs in this new economy that we're developing around small modular nuclear and other types of projects. I think we're all on board with that. But to use that terminology, they're virtue signaling to an extreme base that is openly advocating to shut down oil and natural gas. Because look at what happened out of COP27. The final communique talked about ultimately shutting down the oil and natural gas industry in the same way that coal had been phased out. We have a prime minister who, when he ran in the last election, talked about that the need to phase out oil sands eventually. He looked at it as inevitability. We don't look at it that way at all. We think that the world is going to need more natural gas. We believe that with carbon capture technology, it's going to make it more and more sustainable. Hydrogen at its base, the best way to make it is out of methane, which is natural gas. When you look at our oil sands producers, they have an aggressive strategy to reduce emissions and use more bitumen beyond combustion. There's a petrochemical industry that we've been supporting here. So we're just shifting the paradigm. This is not about phasing out any of these jobs. It's about growing them and expanding the opportunity for oil and natural gas workers. And that's the kind of language I would like to hear the Prime Minister use, because we I think, missed an opportunity when the German Chancellor was here, saying that there wasn't a business case for LNG. The Japanese Prime Minister is coming this week begging us to do more development so that we can export LNG. And I would like for a change for the Prime Minister to say, yes, we can, and to work with us on making that happen. And this kind of targeted attack on our industry, it doesn't lend itself to cooperative federalism. That's what I'm worried about, and I do take him seriously because of the past statements that he's made on this.
Well, Sheila, bravo to Danielle Smith. And speaking of the German Chancellor, we need only look across the pond to see what energy disasters have resulted thanks to wokeism and virtue signaling. Germany, for example, had state-of-the-art clean coal generating plants. They were shuttered. making Germany reliant on its traditional enemy of Russia for their gas. Ask them how that's turning out. Well, you don't even have to ask them. There's media reports, Sheila, of German citizens going into the Black Forest with axes to chop trees down for firewood. Similarly, in France, 50-something state-of-the-art nuclear reactors, several of them being decommissioned right now. So last summer, one of the most underreported stories, as far as I could tell, when they were having that heat wave in Europe, were roving brownouts and blackouts in France because they didn't have the energy capability. So we see what these kind of virtue signaling energy policies have resulted in terms of several European countries and apparently Japan. So I don't think Albertans and Danielle Smith need to be preached to by the Prime Minister.
No, and where's the opposition in Alberta on this? They've said absolutely nothing. Justin Trudeau threatens to just transition Albertans into unemployment in the middle of a boom that's picking up. I think that's really why he's so focused on this. Is Alberta's about to be very, very economically powerful in Confederation again. And they have a premier who says, we are going to execute that power within Confederation. And so that's this move to quickly kneecap Alberta before it gets a little bit too haughty, I guess is the right word. So there's a lot of that happening here. And what she's saying there is exactly why we need the Sovereignty Act, where we can say, actually, no, actually, we have jurisdiction over our natural resources, and we're going to do whatever we damn well please. Thank you very much. And so that's why, for those naysayers who say, we don't need the Sovereignty Act, we'll work collaboratively with the federal government. There's no working collaboratively with these people who want to completely wipe out our industries. And again, where's Rachel Notley on this? There's a running tally, I think, on the UCP account where every day they go and check how many tweets she's sent since the Fed said they were going to nuke our industry. And how many tweets she sent while actually never defending Alberta on this issue. Every day they add to it because she wants this for us too. And people need to know that as we head into the next election in May.
And Sheila, speaking of which, and I think I asked you this last week, I keep coming across these stories showing that Rachel Notley and the NDP are trending highly in Alberta. Tell me, this can't be. I mean, especially after getting a taste of her governance several years ago. You wrote that great book, The Destroyers, and believe me, that comes as advertised in terms of what that government did to Alberta. Sheila, is there any chance that they have a chance of forming the government in the next election this year?
There's a lot of shaking off Jason Kenney for Danielle Smith to do. Jason Kenney hung on too long, and he left Danielle Smith with a very short runway to repair the party before she heads into the next election. If she does lose, a lot of that should hang squarely around Jason Kenney's neck. It really should, because he set her up for failure. And he also sort of stuck his nose into the leadership race with criticism of her, which all of a sudden then the mainstream media loved Jason Kenney after hating his guts for so long. So if she does lose, a lot of it has to do with the fact that he just hung on to power far too long. But I don't know. I think she's doing and saying the right things. And I think every new leader sort of has that sluggish start where you're sort of trying to find your footing and the media hates you because you're a conservative. And so she's not getting a lot. But I think they continue to poll Edmonton on these issues. And that's not how you win. That's not how you win power in Alberta. You need to win either Edmonton or Calgary and rural Alberta. Well, the UCP are going to just sweep rural Alberta. That's fine. I think they're going to do well in Calgary and not great in Edmonton, which should lead to a UCP victory. I think. I'm hopeful.
So, Sheila, if your first theory is true that Jason Kenney hung on a little too long and it's, fractured, I guess, the trust conservative minded people in Alberta have with the UCP, is that, I can't see these people voting NDP, of course. So is it a matter of them simply staying at home, sitting on their hands on election day, and basically the NDP wins by default.
That could be the case. And I don't even know if it's fractured within like reliable conservative voters. But I think it's those people who are like, I'm Albertan, so I vote conservative. There's a lot of those people out there. They're not even sure why they vote conservative, but they like it how it's here. They're like,
there's a lot of liberal voters like that federally too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And there are a lot of people who are like, we don't have PST, so I'm voting for the party that never brought in the PST. That's good enough for them. A lot of those people are like, well, if Rachel Notley says she's not going to bring in a PST, I guess I'll vote for her because the TV told me that I shouldn't like Jason Kenney, and the TV is now telling me that I shouldn't like Danielle Smith. So I guess we'll try something new. There's a lot of those people out there too, especially in the urban areas.
Well, and it's May what date, Sheila?
Oh, I think it's the first week of May is our statutory election date. So we have fixed election dates here in Alberta, so they can't reg the puck until the polling looks good. Right. But it could be before that. They have like a window in which they can call the election. So they have about 4 months to prove to the world that the world didn't end when Danielle Smith started making changes. Like, you can still go to the hospital even though she fired the AHS board. You can still, like, so far so good. We're going to fight the gun ban. There's a lot of things that she's doing that, the people on the left get like scared about. And, oh my goodness, she's going to fight the gun ban. So we're going to have gun violence everywhere. You have 4 months to show those people that, yeah, actually, no, there was no catastrophe. You didn't even notice any of the things that she did.
Well, you know what? In geological time, 4 months is not even a blink of an eyelash. But in political time, that's an eternity, Sheila. So like you said, lots of time left on the clock to turn things around and get her vision forward and to get people, backing this party because, what we saw under the Rachel Notley NDP years, who in Alberta in their right mind would want to go back to that?
Yeah. By the way, I should point out here that Dave, one of our web team, very into wrestling culture, much like you and I, although I think you and I are more like late 80s. I'm more of Rowdy Roddy Piper era. But I have his Funko Pop and something else over here. But he points out that the Saudi deal with the WWE caused them to bar a Syrian-born Canadian wrestler from any of their events, and a Dutch guy because he had religious tattoos. So I would be out.
And you know what, Sheila?
There goes my career as a WWE girl.
Here's the sad thing. If this company is indeed worth $11 billion US and you have Saudis willing to cut a check for that and more, it doesn't matter. They'll do it. Yeah. It's all about the money, right? And, but we'll see. I mean, there's a saying in professional wrestling, nothing is really real until it happens. Right. And maybe we are being hoodwinked in that this is some grandiose storyline and Linda McMahon is going to...
I'm excited for that to be true, honestly.
But it's sad that, doing the moral thing, the ethical thing, being, friendly to women, yada, yada, yada. If the Saudis have a problem with that, but they've got a oil tanker full of $100 bills, they're going to get their way, simply put. So we'll keep an eye on that. And like I said, that could lead to wrestling not being on the airwaves on TV, but we live in a world where you can stream it through another service. So lots of balls in play.
Yeah. Speaking of Saudi oil, Justin Trudeau plans to phase out our oil and gas sector while continuing to import Saudi oil to the East Coast. Saudi, Algerian, Nigerian, Venezuelan.
It is astonishing. And by the way, I want to give a plug to the boss. If anyone wants a great book on this, please read Ethical Oil by Ezra Levant. That sets out the case for why there should be preferential treatment for Canadian oil, not the oil from dictatorships around the globe.
While you're ordering that book, might I suggest you throw Groundswell into your cart at the same time? That's Ezra's book on the natural gas industry. And he makes specific note of the stranglehold that Gazprom has on Western Europe because of our inability to develop our natural resources here. It makes the world less free.
Look at all these rebels writing books, Sheila. Maybe one day I'm going to write a book. Maybe one day I'm going to read a book. I don't know.
You know, it's a new year, new you. Okay, let's get into this. We're way past, and I have things to do, and I think you do too. Paul Otto Newman gives us a buck. Bring back Stampede Wrestling. You are right. There is Dungeon Wrestling. It's a promotion in Calgary, and the Hart family is deeply involved in it, and it is fantastic. If you're in Calgary, I think they have a show coming up in mid-February. Anyways, it's Dungeon Wrestling. You can find it on Facebook. Great show. I might be there heckling because I was born to heckle. I was there last time heckling. Okay, we've got Billy Howard, $2. Instead of asking Justin Trudeau to delay the gun grab, why doesn't Smith just say notwithstanding clause? And no, is she Kennedy 2.0? She doesn't need to say notwithstanding clause. She's already advised the RCMP are not going, at least the ones in Alberta, are not going to expend resources on Justin Trudeau's gun grab. We're not doing it. And that policy inspired Saskatchewan to follow suit, and Yukon and a few other provinces said, you know what, we can do that too. So she doesn't need to invoke the notwithstanding clause to say that the gun grab is unconstitutional. She's just going to say, no, Alberta is, I guess, a sanctuary province for gun owners.
But, you know, Sheila, I've met many gun owners, and I love them all, by the way, even though I don't shoot guns. But this is surely destined for failure. I mean, if we go down, years from now where there are literally boots on the ground, law enforcement officers going door to door with people that they know own guns, and they say, Mr. Jones, I see you've got this, and that. We're here to confiscate them. Aren't they going to be constantly met with the answer, oh, you know what, officer, I was hunting and fishing last year, and the canoe tipped over, and in the middle of lake ? I think my firearms are at the bottom there. Sorry, bye. Isn't that going to be the go-to answer?
Yeah, I lost my guns in a boating accident. Yes. But I was talking to Tracy Wilson from the CCFR, and, we were talking about it's going to be impossible to execute this gun ban because you are taking guns that are unregistered. So you don't know who has them, where they are, how many of them are in the country. And it's usually double the estimates that they think. SKS is my go-to example of this. The feds think there are 200,000 of those just loose in the country. But it's probably double. And you are moving 500,000 guns from unregistered to prohib. How are you going to find those?
Yeah, I really don't know how it's going to work. But, and you know what? At the end of the day, Sheila, doesn't that say all? The very idea of the gun grab, it's virtue signaling. Every copper on the street knows that taking away the rifle of a Saskatchewan duck farmer is not going to make a whit of difference in Toronto with the gangbangers going around shooting each other. So the fact that the ban itself is nonsensical, the very fact that it's not even feasible to carry out a seizure of guns, that's besides the point. The people making this legislation, they know this is a dead dog with fleas to begin with.
Yeah, I'm willing to guess the Soviet era SKS is not the firearm of choice for Toronto gangsters. I'm just floating a thought bubble there. Bill Blair, by the way, Bill Blair is the worst.
Oh.
There are a lot of people that I think are stupid MPs, stupid cabinet ministers. Seamus O'Regan's a great example of this. Omar Al-Jabra, just not exuding a lot of intellectual prowess. But Bill Blair, I don't think is stupid. I think he's bad. Yeah. Because he was the top cop in Toronto. I hate to use that phrase. But he was the guy in charge there. He oversaw the explosion of gun violence in Toronto on the streets there. Didn't do anything to stop it. Probably made it worse through some of his policies. And so he knows exactly where the guns are coming from and who's using them. And he knows they're not coming from people like me. But he's happy to scapegoat people like me. Why? Because people like me don't vote Liberal. And so there's no political fallout for the Liberals if they attack the Saskatchewan duck farmer, as you say, although I think you mean duck hunter.
Oh, did I say farmer? I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you say farmer every time.
You are absolutely right, though, Sheila. Bill Blair, being a veteran police chief of the Toronto Police Service, if you were a friend of his and you were to have a heart-to-heart talk with him, he would say, absolutely, this is all nonsense. It's not going to save a single life. I have no doubt of that. But like you said, for him being a Liberal, for him going along with the virtue signaling, he will pretend this is effective legislation. But then again, by the way, folks, if you ever want to get under Bill Blair's skin, ask him why he doesn't live in the riding he represents. That would be Scarborough, where there might be a bit of gun crime from time to time. No, Bill Blair lives in Forest Hill, one of the most Tony neighborhoods of Toronto, and that really rankles him. But yeah, he doesn't want to get up close too much to the gangbangers who this legislation is not going to affect one iota, Sheila.
No. Okay, let's keep going. We've got Fraser McBurney, $5. It says, has the government arrested the commie Chinese so-called police and deported them? Nope. I bet not. Have they brought the RCMP to justice for destroying the steam shovels? You mean the track hose at Coots? Nope.
Yes.
Also no. Nope. Also nope. So we have these Chinese police stations in Canada where it's alleged that they're surveilling Chinese expats living in Canada, people who have escaped communism, who are often critical of the regime there, under the guise of providing driver's license renewals in case you ever want to go back to China. That's what they're saying. And sort of a consular services, which you could get at the consulate, by the way. You don't need these Chinese surveillance outlets on Canadian soil, but here we are. And Justin Trudeau is doing nothing about it. And with regard to the track hose, nothing ever came of that. We offered legal help. I think the owner of the track hose just wants to move on from this terrible time, and who could blame him? But the RCMP can just vandalize and ruin your stuff and do it in the name of public safety.
I'm no skin in the game of that heavy construction equipment being vandalized, but I often think about it, and thanks to Sid and K2, they exposed it. And it was despicable that the RCMP would act like criminals and do that to that equipment. Now, on the Chinese police station front, we have filed a couple of reports. If you haven't seen them, folks, you can search for them on our website. 2 in Markham, 1 in Scarborough. We visited them. One of the Markham ones is a Chinese Toronto Business Association, and it was either locked down or nobody would come to the door. The other place in Markham is just a single family dwelling. And the one in Scarborough is a convenience store. And, and Sheila, you made that great remark that it's like something out of Men in Black. Like, at the front of the store, there's lottery tickets and Coca-Cola and cigarettes. And then you go through that back door and there's a Chinese police service. It's crazy. And we have reached out to the RCMP, including visiting a detachment. And basically the response we got was, we'll get back to you. And I think that goes back to September when Isabel and I last went out there, and it's January of 2023. This is shameful. The lack of transparency is absolutely shameful. And I can tell you this, Sheila, if there were a Canadian police service operating in Beijing, how do you think that would go over with the Mandarins there? Yeah.
No, straight to jail. They'd have special jails for Canadian police officers in China if we ever tried to pull that. Cross Comics gives us $5. Says, David Menzies, if you want a comic you can read, check out The Canadian Shield by me. It's on Indiegogo. or crosscomics.ca. And then he also links to his Cross Comics Rumble account.
Now, can you actually get a paper version of Canadian Shield? I still have newspaper subscriptions and magazine subscriptions. I can't stand all these electronic devices that are leashed to us, Sheila. So is the Canadian Shield, if I go to my friendly neighborhood comic book store, can he order that for me? You'll have to send in another comment.
Yeah, you're going to have to continue to chat David. Because he doesn't understand how 2023 works. Who's calling me? Anyways, I got a new watch and I don't know how to turn off the ring function when people call me.
Is it one of those fancy Dick Tracy watches with like it's connected to your phone or something?
Yeah, it's a Pixel watch. I moved from Fitbit to the Pixel watch because I can move all my. Anyways, nobody cares about this stuff. Let's just keep going.
I don't like watches like that. I like just a watch like this where he tells the time.
Yeah, you know what? I feel that way more and more every day. I think we're all caught up. Olivia, is that true?
Oh, okay then. Well, thank you so much. By the way, thank you to Olivia and Efren behind the scenes. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. A special thank you to everyone that made a financial donation. That's how we make the money here. We're not part of the Prime Minister Blackface McGroper sugar daddy list, and nor would we ever take money from the Prime Minister. So tomorrow, Sheila and I will be back here, I think, Friday the 13th. Yes. Wow. How do you like them apples?
It's going to be a doozy.
It will be a doozy indeed. In the meantime, folks, as always, stay safe and stay sane.
So there is a lot of excellent work happening in academia related to studying and assessing the impacts of long COVID. That work is ongoing. The reference that you made with